What's going on, guys? Welcome to Ginger on Wheels. You'll have to excuse the poor weather. We're actually in Warsaw, Poland right now. Yeah, this wheel just came to us. It's called the EX.N High Torque. It's from my e-wheel, so give them a click. There's a link in the description below. But we're gonna be one of the first people to ride, and I'll give you my opinions on how this wheel rides compared to the other wheels I've ridden, and just kind of a general first impression up close look at it. You can see here, these are the pedals that it comes with. It's got the same general aesthetic, if not exact same aesthetic as the regular EX.N, the high speed one. 2 charge ports up top, no USB port. It does still have this cool halo light in the front. And then of course you've got your front headlight. It's no competition to like the Veteran Sherman or the V12, but it does get the job done. The 100-volt wheel, it's got a little display here. Now, unless you're leaning forward over the front of the wheel, the display is pretty hard to read. It shows kilometers per hour. The speed mode says Begode, and it has like a 5-bar battery gauge, so not the most accurate or useful like display, but hey, it's there. It's better than previous generations of wheels. This is what the brake light looks like down here, or the tail light. The beepers, I guess, are inside here, and I was riding this thing around last night. I'm 200 pounds, about 6'2", and my top speed was, I think, 40 miles an hour. And I was getting the 80% beeps. Beep, 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 beep. So it's faster than the MSP just by a little bit, because I do get the beeps a little earlier on that, but not as fast as the high speed, obviously, or something like a Sherman. But the original EX.N had pretty low torque. It was comparable to the Sherman, maybe a little bit less even. So they decided to fix it and make a high torque version of the EX.N. And I can tell you, it does have the torque. It's got that low end torque. Got that low end torque. That torque. That torque. That torque.
Got that low end
torque. That torque. The pads I've been using with it right here, these are the side pads, and they're my favorite pads I've ever used, honestly. They lock my feet in the front and the back, and they let you really get all the torque you can out of this wheel. And it does have a lot of torque. It's a little bit lower than the RS or the MSP. And maybe it's like 10–20% lower. But it's definitely way more torque than my Sherman. My primary mode of transportation these days is the Veteran Sherman, and this thing has a lot more torque. I'll give you a little demo right here. So one of the things that I really like about the side pad, they lock in the back of this shoe and the front. These are just regular Timberland boots. But I've noticed on Clark pads and even some custom pads that I've tried my hardest to make, when I lean all the way forward, it really only makes contact with the front of my shin on the top of the pad. But with these pads, they have a little tiny bit of give in them. It's just enough to touch the entire front of my shin. So I actually feel like I get a lot more grip out of these than I do out of the other pads I've used. I think we should go for a little bit of a ride. What do you say? Like I said before, I really love these side pads. I feel totally locked into the wheel. So something that's important, I think, to mention is that on the Sherman, it's got really like menial, very low end torque, but as you get going faster, the torque seems to increase. On this wheel, I feel like it's the other way around. All the torque is at the bottom end, and when you start getting up to 25–30 miles an hour and then really lean into it, you can feel it start to overpower. It's kind of scary. Oh, we got a beep there. Super fun wheel, you guys. I love the amount of torque it's got compared to my Sherman. It does have a 2700 watt-hour battery. My Sherman's got 3200, so It's a little bit smaller and it does munch through the battery pretty quickly, but it's bigger than my RS. I feel like as a big guy, I munch through the battery in the RS in like 25, 30 miles sometimes. And this thing, obviously you're gonna get about 50% more range, so that's a big plus. I feel like I can do things on this wheel that I wouldn't feel comfortable doing on my Sherman. The Sherman's a little bit heavier. Feels more cumbersome to move back and forth. This wheel is definitely like easy to dip left and right. Feels great to ride. I would compare it like the Sherman is sort of like a Jeep with a lot of horsepower and it's got the durability, and this thing is sort of like a Subaru WRX. It's really sporty, it still has off-roading abilities, and just a lot more torque. One thing that this wheel has got sort of an annoyance is when it gets hot, when it gets bothered, it's got a really loud fan. Let's stop and listen to that for a second. Listen to that fan. Now that's a fan. The trolley handle here, you can see it's sort of reminiscent of the Monster Pro / regular EX.N. It works, but it's not the best. I do like that it's centrally located. It's not in the back like the RS. That makes it kind of hard to steer, but just the grip itself is kind of uncomfortable. So like I said, the wheel is really sporty, fun to ride. The one downside I noticed with it though is that the internals, Begode, Gotway, whoever you are, they don't seem to have been making much progress as far as like really speccing out the internals. There's one small fuse between all the batteries and the control board, and the connector that they use has 2 wires coming in, and then you can tell they just sort of shoved 6 wires coming out. The wires aren't the right gauge for the hole, and there's more than one in the hole, so it seems like they could have done a better job making it less prone to shorts, but as far as we've experienced, it works fine, so maybe I'm just overanalyzing it. It does come with a 3 amp 100-volt charger. With the 2700 watt-hour pack, you're looking at like a 9 or 10 hour charge time if you include cell balancing from dead. This little metal bracket here, and unlike my RS, you can fold the pedals up and they stay up. If you have pads that hang down lower, I'll just adjust this one real quick. If you have a pad that's lower and you want the pedal to stay up, it doesn't flop back down, so it makes the profile of the wheel a little skinnier because the pedals can hold their own. So why would someone buy this wheel? Well, it's like a Sherman, but it's got way more torque. It's like the EX.N, it's just got way more torque, got the off-road tire. So if you're someone that doesn't need to be going 45, 50 miles an hour regularly, and you like going up steep hills, you like popping curbs and doing crazy things, or you like going off-roading, doing steep climbs, it's definitely not as heavy as my Sherman, I can tell you that much. You're gonna have a longer day off-roading if you're doing like steep hill climbs, jumps, all sorts of fun. And whereas the RS might run out of batteries in a couple hours, this thing will last you like 4 or 5 maybe. So that's a huge plus. 50% more battery, I think. They did a really good job with this wheel tuning it. I do wish, like on the next generation, they would try a little harder on the internals and electronics, maybe add some waterproofing, but still a great option for what's in the market right now. This thing still feels really light and sporty while having a lot of the characteristics of the heavier street cruising fast wheels. So if they had some sort of seal around the edge here, like a better one, there's a little tiny rubber gasket that flops out as soon as you pull the shell off. But if there was like a thick rubber gasket that this pushed into, if there was some sort of silicone seal around the connectors and they weren't trying to jam more wires into the connectors than it was actually meant to, I'd feel a lot more comfortable owning this wheel personally, but there's a lot of people out there who just like to rip on cheap wheels that go fast and have a lot of torque, and so this is a great option for you if that's the case. Yeah, Poland's pretty cool. Yeah, EX.N high torque's pretty cool. What I would like to see in the next generation of Begode wheel is thicker wires, like smaller gauge wires, waterproof connectors, the appropriate amount of wires going into said connectors. I'd like to see a gasket going around the edge of this. I'd like to see some beepers or speakers up here. Music playing and beeping towards me is what I want to hear. I don't need other people to hear it as much. This display, while it might look pretty, it should be mounted farther up, and they can maybe move the charge ports and power button back. One thing that's kind of nice though is it does have a little kill switch here, so, you know, better than the Sherman in that respect. Begode still has a long way to go before they make the perfect wheel, in my opinion. Yeah, there really is no perfect wheel out there, and at the price point with these new wheels coming out, this thing is really competitively priced and has a ton of low-end torque. So if you're the kind of person who is maybe on the fence about buying an RS, but the RS just has a smaller battery, bam, here's your option right there.